She's a director and producer, a creative dynamo who's been involved in so many different aspects of the industry. She was an agent for some of Britain's biggest stars in sport, music and film. As a director and producer, she's worked on so many different shows. She's the founder of POW TV, and she's recently been the producer and director of the Driving Force series, which featured top sports women. You can hear about all of that and her experiences to come. But I started by asking her whether she was creative as a child and whether she saw in her future whether she might be a producer and director.
It sounds like a kind of a cliche thing you hear with a lot of creatives, or I do, is that I was really very badly dyslexic as a child. And I suffered a lot for that in class. You know, back when I was growing up, there wasn't that much understanding at state schools of dyslexia. You were probably a bit of a dunce, so, you know, or you were put outside all the time for getting things wrong. But as I was very blessed, and this is where driving forces do come in, and in the show Driving Force, which I'll come on to later with you, most of the influences of the girls in the series were teachers. And for me, having two particular teachers who saw I had learning disabilities really helped me to develop, where I went from being like the dunce in the class 16 months later to being the captain of the school, so in junior school. So it really did, you know, that's how I really do appreciate teachers and what they do for kids if you get the right one. And then I went on to working creatively. I wasn't always like creative. I love art, I love my history, but I left school to become a stunt rider. I worked with horses, and I probably was one of the few women stunt riders at the time. And I worked on a series that you might not remember being so young, is a series called Black Beauty. And that's how I actually got into the entertainment business, was to going in as a professional stunt rider, and I trained there for 4.5 years. So that was my introduction into the world of entertainment.
That's some introduction, isn't it? I mean, there's not very many people, male or female, who will have done that, are there? I mean, what was that like? It must have been an amazing experience for you.
It was a dream. It was absolute dream. I mean, I loved the series Black Beauty. So going and working with a horse master called Reg Dent, who did all the, you know, the stunts and supplied all the horses for the series. It was, for me, it was to be taught how to fall off a horse for a living was quite a bizarre thing to do, but I really did enjoy it. I loved it. I loved the adrenaline rush that I got from all the things I learned. So it kind of naturally evolved. I worked with actors, directors, and they say never work with animals or children. I actually worked with both, and I was only a kid myself. I was only 16, but yeah, it was a great start and introduction into the, as I say, into the world of entertainment, and it kind of evolved from there.
What was it that you loved about it? I mean, obviously you had your very niche, exciting, like you say, adrenaline-filled role within it. But in terms of the wider picture, and, you know, you ended up going into that industry, what was it that appealed to you about it, do you think? Imagination
of, you know, being working in television or film. You can be in a world of imagination. I love creating. I love to, in that first job I had with Black Beauty, it was set in Victorian England, and it was, you know, I loved the costumes, I loved the characters, and also loved to see the actors become different characters, and going from being like Stacey Copeland, who played the main character in Black Beauty, see her going from her into, as a young girl that had never really, you know, encountered that world before, seeing women, that young girl, become a completely different character from who she really was. And that really, that appealed to my nature, is because I never kind of knew where I fitted. And then seeing you could become any character you wanted, that fascinated me about actors. And then I went on to, when I left working, I loved working with animals. It was a big thing for me to work with horses. I've still got horses. But then to develop on to working in events, and then through events, I evolved into the world of being an agent. So I became an agent for many high-profile sportsmen and actors, and from Robin Gibb to 4 world champion boxers, across the different diversity. And then going into that, I then got into production, because they tend to go hand in hand, production and agencies, a boutique style. You're always getting the opportunity to do a short film or a production. So it kind of started that way. Well, I started off a bit of a misfit, really, because I wasn't actually doing a show at the moment called Misfits, and I feel I fit into that category. But I think I was a bit of a misfit because I was born in the late 60s, and coming from my background, which was very humble, going into my way in to probably the world of entertainment was through horses, through doing stunt riding. It wasn't the usual going to film school. I learned on the ground. It was almost working from making tea upwards. But I felt that for me, I've done 120 shows now for Sky, ITV and Channel 4, and every single one of those shows that I did, it was a battle. It was a complete battlefield to try and get my work commissioned, to get my work on TV, to get anything really across the line, because I wasn't the normal. There were literally no female directors, producers back in the day when I was coming up the ranks, but it was very at times I thought, because I didn't sound or go to the right schools, and I had a Cockney accent, and I didn't have the sort of university education. At times I thought I kept my mouth shut because I thought I'm going to make a complete idiot of myself. And then as time went on, I'd look at some of these so-called director and producers, and I think, did he or she really say that? Because that's not right. And then I got more confidence, and the more I did and worked with different actors, I was very blessed. If you look at some of the shows I've directed and produced, Living the Life, I've worked with some of the greatest legends of all time and directors of all time, from Hans Zimmer to Ken Russell, across the board directed, and I learned so much from those iconic stars, because they were stars, and I learned from their energy is just have your confidence. Just think, I can do this. If he can do it, or she can do it, mainly he can do it, I can do it. And I think, being the Irish in me, we had to sort of fight for a lot of things that we had anyway. I kept going, and I wouldn't take that no for an answer. I just kept going and kept going. And I think if you could keep going, and you really, really just, I don't know if it's stupidity or it's whatever it can be called, you just keep going.
Definitely isn't stupidity. It's definitely more along the lines of determination and relentlessness. Your first show was Living the Life, is that correct? And that was sort of through Stephen Fry, is that right? That you sort of...
Well, the first
what was that like, doing your first one? That must have been amazing.
It. Absolutely. Well, I managed the Gibb family, Robin Gibb and his wife, Drina Gibb, and RJ, which is the Bee Gees, what Robin was, but I managed the family. So the first contributor that I did for Living the Life was Robin Gibb, with my co-producer at the time was Leslie Phillips, who you may know, the great actor, Ding Dong, Hello, iconic, British actor of Carry On and many other films. So he taught me an awful lot about directing. He mentored me. He was incredibly patient, great friend of mine for many years. He's still alive. And he was a blessing, because he's done over, I don't know, about 1,000 films and worked with the top directors. So I learned a lot from him. And that for me, my first notch, I think it was after about the 4th episode, I thought, I'm actually getting into the swing of this. But it wasn't till I think I did about 45 of those shows, and it wasn't till I did the Power of Women series which was two iconic women talking about their lives, whether it be Jane Goodall or Twiggy or Mary Quant, whatever. I sat on set one day and I thought, I'm going to say this to myself, I actually did a good job there. I'm a director now. And I felt really overwhelmed because I'd never actually said to myself, maybe it was my upbringing, you didn't sort of give yourself self-accreditation, you just got on with it. But I actually said, well done. And that wasn't an ego. I actually said, well done for the hard work. You know, so that's what came apart. And that's when I really sort of thought I can actually do this, because I've had now 63 shows on main terrestrial TV, and I don't know how the hell I did it. I just did it, and I got on. I just did it.
Powerful stuff. The creative dynamo that is Rosemary Reed. And in the next 10 minutes, you can hear the final part of our conversation when she tells me all about the Driving Force series, the work that she's doing in schools, and the impact that she wants to have on women's sport.
Driving Force, I suppose we go back to my early days of sport. Well, even though working with horses in a different capacity, it wasn't equestrian, jumping or dressage, it still was working in a very male-dominated industry. It still is stunt riding and whatever form of stunt work that's out there. But I thought that the determination that I had to get without any support, which most female athletes that I've interviewed, and there's been altogether now, I've done 20 episodes of Driving Force, just about to start season 3. But the vast majority of those iconic women did not get the support, both from whether it be from financial support, from funding or brands, across the board really. And I felt I could relate to that a lot, because I was a bit of I was a maverick or whatever, a misfit. I went out on my own, and I felt like I was on my own. And so many of the women that were in the series were solo players, in the sense that you had a Victoria Pendleton, and yes, they're part of teams, but a lot of these girls, Dean Asher Smith, or they run alone. So it was very hard, in a very hard world, for me to see their struggles and the determination and also dedication, but their spirit was whatever, as you said that earlier, whatever drove them, the driving force, was just to not give up. They had a goal, and whatever it took to get to that goal, they did it. Whatever sacrifices, and I could relate to that. So listening to their stories and talking to the women on set, I could relate to every step of their journey, because it was so challenging for me, continually been challenged by, the system, and there is a system. And I saw these women, I actually took a completely different view of women's strength and their durability and, determination. You can't stop a woman when she's on that mission. And I have such admiration and respect for all of the women that I met on that journey of Driving Force. I don't think I've ever encountered anything like it in my life, and don't think I will again, really. I mean, everybody that's got a mission is dedicated, has that determination. But I think going against the odds, whether it be from a Katie Taylor having to pretend she was a boy to get fights, or, Maggie Alphonse, it was just every single one of those women struggled. Charlotte Desjardins, she didn't come from any way a privileged background, quite the opposite. And it was just overwhelming for me.
It's really
and
interesting. A couple of the points that you've made there are so interesting. One, that with your experiences in your industry, in your line of work, you could relate so much to sportswomen. And that's what I've found the other way around so many times, talking to women in law, in technology, in construction, all these other industries. Yeah. And they say, oh, I know exactly what you mean, albeit totally different pathways and industries. so many similarities. And then the second thing, you saying that, even given all the experiences you've had, you still felt uplifted and enlightened by these stories and by the power of women. And I think it's because it's so much that those things are minimised and put down, that when we allow ourselves, we go, wow, it's amazing, actually, those stories that are out there, and the power of it. And I totally agree. Now, one of the important things that you're looking to do as well is to see it is to be it work that you're doing in schools. Tell me about that.
Well, with series 2, we went into, we started off smaller scale, this series just gone, and we went into 6 different schools across the UK. So, and we brought a contributor from each episode. So, for example, we went to a really cool, amazing school in Cardiff, and a lot of the kids didn't have it easy at that school. And we brought Jess Hawkins, who is an ambassador and driver for Aston Martin, and she we went in there with Girls on Track, and we brought some other people from the world of F1. Jess, like myself, is a stunt driver. She did a lot of the stunts in the Bond film. So we went into the school and we had the careers team there. We had about 100 odd girls, and we got them to do pit stop changes. We talked, everything. And we showed them that F1, you don't have to be a driver. You can go in as a mechanic or a sports psychologist, or, many, many different roles in sport, which girls don't really have put to them as a priority of a choice in the careers, when they're choosing where they're going. So that's where we really want to shine a light on, is to let girls know that, okay, you mightn't hit the grade to become a Steph Houghton or whatever, but you can actually go in to sport that you love as a career, doing many different things.
That's
fantastic. As a coach, as
and
an agent,
and you just don't know, do you, that one spark that is ignited in a young person from that meeting and seeing that role model that can raise those aspirations. You just don't know where it's going to go. I do want to ask, to finish, this journey that you've been on, the incredible things you've done, as I say, as an individual, that you've done collaboratively and that you've done for others, and that you've done in these various industries that you've touched and been part of. What would you say is the biggest development, if that's the right word, or progress or change, whatever the right word is, that's happened for you since being that young woman at school, unsure of herself, not feeling that she knew her place quite, to the point where you embodied everything that you are and that you've done? What would you say that's down to, and what is that journey?
Self-belief is a big one. You have to believe. Believe. You just have to believe. And if you believe, it will happen. I'm not one of these people that just says that mantra. It's a fact. But also, the main thing, and women like you know this, you have to, as women, support each other and give opportunities to other women, because I do and you do, and if other women do the same, and I'm very blessed to have a circle of very powerful women around me now that really do, and men that support the work I'm doing, and that is always help and support others, no matter how small that is, that opportunity. Even if it's letting someone come and work and shadow you on set, or working with you in the studio, just give that person that opportunity, because somebody else doesn't give it to them. And if you do, it could change their whole life, because it did for me.